Heyo, welcome everyone to episode 83 of Today in the Scene. I'm Joe with Indie Arcade Wave, and I just want to say thanks for checking us out. If you like what we're doing here at Indie Arcade Wave, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It means the world to us, helps us keep doing this, and it helps us keep bringing on awesome guests so that you can see what's going on in the scene, whether it be with indie games, arcade games, or whatever else. So this week, we're going to do a solo thing, and I just want to revisit some of the old indie games that we've talked to. We've talked to a whole bunch. But there's like 4 or 5 that I really want to hit on this week, and I'm sure I'll do another episode to cover the rest. Let's just jump into it and start talking about these games. The first game I want to look at is Galactic Battleground. Now, obviously, I'm biased because I'm part of this team. This is a game that we've spent a lot of time on. It's been about 4 years now. We've been kind of on and off with it, and we've now built another version of the game. We had our large 4-player model, and then we had our Konami 4-player model, we had our 2-player cocktail model, and now we've got our 4-player cocktail model, which we will be showing at MGC in a couple weeks here. And this game is very heavily inspired by Galaga. We all absolutely love Galaga, and that's why this game ended up being made. So I'm going to just jump to episode 70 that I did with Dylan and Kelly, where we were kind of brainstorming different game ideas. So you guys got to look into what it was like to be a game developer and kind of spitball ideas. And we'll just go over the origin story of where Galactic Battleground came from. And here's Kelly.
What do you want to make? And he's like, I want to make Galaga. I said, well, Galaga's a great game, and we can't just copy it letter for letter. So let's do something different. Let's make Galaga, PvP. Because that night I remember him saying to him directly that, the best thing about replayability is the player-on-player experience. Single-player games are fun and great, and a lot of people love them, but people get really excited about player versus player competition, and we thought this Galaga universe, if you will, is a good spot to explore a player versus player experience. So Dylan and I sat together that night and came up with a PvP experience where we had one ship on the top and one ship on the bottom. Put a few obstacles in between us. And we started working on the power-ups together. I think we came up with 6 or 8 that first night. And I think they're all still in the game today.
So now you have a better idea of where Galactic Battleground came from and kind of the origin story behind Dylan and Kelly and what they had done working together and what it turned into. I was brought onto the team a while after they first started it, right around the arcade time. Came up with the idea of like throwing it into an arcade cabinet and bringing it to arcades. And it's just taken off from there. We've met tons of awesome people, and that's the reason why I'm doing this podcast. And I'm going to talk about some of those awesome people that we've met and kind of give you a little background on their story and how everything got started with them. So I guess let's talk about the next one. The next game that I wanted to talk about was DeathBall. The creator of DeathBall is Tony Hauber. He built this game by himself. Art, assets, gameplay, music, coding, cabinet design, everything was a solo project. He's brought some people in over the time to make it a little bit easier on the cabinet development side. But we're going to go all the way back to episode 2 to hear him talk a little bit about the inspiration from the game, from a game called Downwell, which is a very well-known indie game, as to where he drew kind of this inspiration of like, you have one button does multiple things, and that button has consequences, and kind of like you need to gauge where your actions are going to be best based on the situation in the game. So let's check that one out.
Yeah, that's a great question. So mechanically, the game is very inspired by Rocket League and Killer Queen, as I was saying before. But art-wise, and in game design-wise too, it got its inspiration from this really awesome game called Downwell. Downwell is a roguelike falling arcade game. And the whole idea is you're just standing on the earth, and there's a well, and once you jump down into the well, you just start falling. And like there's ledges and stuff you can land on, but the interesting thing about the game is you're wearing gun boots. So every time you shoot bullets downwards, and it slows your fall. So the whole game the whole game, it's all this 2-color game design. So it's like black and white, or like you can mix and match the color schemes. But black and white is the classic one. And the big game design stuff I really drew from that is everything in Downwell is intended to serve two purposes. Everything, like shooting not only hurts enemies below you, but it slows your trajectory. And I really think that creates really complex, interesting choices in games. And so when you think about, well, jumping is not only how I raise my elevation in DeathBall, but it's also how I place another bubble. Like those things pairing together, movement and placement of your set piece, they create this challenging interplay of when do I go for the bubble, or when do I sacrifice my old bubble to get higher on the map? Those kind of trade-offs, they're born out of forcing things to have two mechanical objectives.
So you heard Tony talk about DeathBall there and how he was heavily inspired by Downwell. He didn't talk too much about the game. In the early episodes, I was really bad about getting people to talk about the game itself. I don't know why I breezed over that part. But DeathBall is basically a one-on-one wizard soccer battle kind of game where you play as either the green wizard or the purple wizard, and you have different abilities such as jump, slide, putting the bubble up, and you use all these different abilities to push the ball to the other goal, to score, to siphon the soul off of the other wizard. And once you score 3 goals, you win. There's a whole bunch of different maps that Tony has in the game. And this game is an absolute blast. If you can find it at an arcade near you, you need to try it. And if they don't have it in an arcade near you, tell them Indie Arcade Wave told you needed this game, and have them reach out to me or Tony, and we'll get everything set up so that they can get it. The next game I want to talk about is Switch and Shoot. Now, Switch and Shoot is another game that we found at MGC. The same year we met Tony, the same year we met Shane and Dave from Cosmotrons. Switch and Shoot is a really, really simple game with very simple core mechanics, which Matt Glanville, the developer, talks about. And Dan reached out to Matt Glanville. They kind of got everything figured out. He put it into an arcade cabinet for him, and they went from there. And that's where they are today. So let's look at episode 39 with Matt Glanville, where he talks about kind of where he started making Switch and Shoot and what it was like to be an independent developer while working for another development studio at that time.
Sure, yeah. What did the development look like? It was a lot of lunch breaks, evenings, and weekends because I was still working a full-time job at the time. So it was made in like 1 to 3 hour bursts, as much as I could. I think it started when I was just messing around with the mechanic, like that idea for like a ship. Well, it wasn't even a ship; it was just like something moving across the screen, and every time you press the button, it flips directions and shoots at the same time. Like that just like distilled little nugget of gameplay, or like one mechanic just kind of popped into my head one day, which is like really, like if you played the game, it's kind of that is the game for the most part. Like there's not a whole lot else wrapped around it, but like I kind of realized quite quickly that works really well, and so I stuck with that. So really it was just a case of like layering things on top of it and seeing like what else I could add. And as I say, like at the start, I didn't even intend for it to be a shmup. I didn't intend for it to be like kind of this retro arcade themed game at all. Like all of that just kind of naturally emerged from what it was and what it felt like to play. Just this idea of like moving across the bottom of the screen, and it's like, okay, well, like makes sense for things to come down. Makes sense for the screen to be vertical because then you've got less. You can't just kind of go on forever horizontally. You've got to like think really carefully about where you're positioned.
So Switch and Shoot is another one of the indie games that I absolutely love. It is on the cheaper side of games for the indie scene. If anybody's looking for it, it is about half the price of some of the other games. So it's a great entry point for arcades. But the game is so simple and so fun. It's like you hit one button, you shoot, you move. You got to kill the aliens before they kill you. You got to collect the coins. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's a fast-paced game, but it doesn't get boring. Like, you can play for hours and hours, as I have. Like, I've got it on my PC. You can get it on Steam. You can get it on Switch. I have sat and played for over an hour, just play again, until I got good enough to actually be able to get past the first boss, which isn't a huge feat when you see people that are putting up thousands of points on the game. But I was pretty happy about it because I don't think I've ever gotten over like 30 on the cabinet. So the next game I want to look at is Black Emperor. Now, Black Emperor is a game that was developed by Tomas, and the guys at Bumblebear, the creators of Killer Queen, which is, I don't even think you'd say arguably, is the biggest indie arcade game out right now. They found this game at a convention and decided that they wanted to put it into a cabinet and develop from there. So here's Tomas describing what the game looks like, some gameplay, so you can check it out, get a better idea of it. And I guess here's the clip.
Black Emperor, and for the people that are listening and aren't watching on YouTube, can you describe the game to them so that they have an idea of what we're talking about? Like, what is this game? What does it look like?
So I would say like it's a very minimalist game. It's sort of, it is an endless runner. Well, you control like this Japanese motorcycle Bososoku character, and it's driving through the desert, and you're trying to maintain yourself on screen as long as you can. And if you go too fast, you die, and if you go too slow, you die. And yeah, you're just trying to maintain yourself on the road as long as you can. And on top of like that simple premise, there's like a bunch of aesthetics and cultural reference and like visual flair.
So Tomas obviously was very passionate about it. The interview is really cool with him talking about his past in the film industry and how he morphed that into the video game industry and started from scratch and kind of learned everything. This was the first game he ever made. It was really cool to hear his story. And I think if you're interested in that, I'll put a link to it up here so you can go check out that episode. But the way that the game went from the convention center to actually in a cabinet was really cool. On top of the fact that Bumblebear decided to use a longboard wheel as your control. So you can go up and down with the longboard wheel, and then you have a button for gas. And as you hit that button, you speed up, but you control with the longboard wheel, which is really, really unique. I don't think I've ever seen another game like that, other than like a trackball, which would be a close second to that kind of design. But those are the 4 games that I really wanted to showcase this week on the show. I've got a whole bunch more on the list. I've even got a handful of games that are international. I could do a whole episode on international indie games if you guys wanted to see that. But I guess that's all we've got for this week. And I just want to say thank you to all those developers that have been on previously talking about their games so that we have the ability to showcase them later on. And we will be showcasing more indies. We've got conventions coming up. We got a whole bunch of stuff planned for the future. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like what we're doing here so we can keep bringing new episodes, new interviews, new indie games, new arcades, things like that. Thank you so much. And until next time, peace.